Welcome back to my author commentary for A Prince of Song and Shade. Today we are doing chapters 28 and 29. Let me just triple check that. Yes, that is right. 28 is quite a small chapter, so I thought I'd roll in 29 so you get a bit more content this week. So let's dive right into it. Chapter 28, we get a nice little moment between Talyn and her mother Alyna and their family, again coming together to help Alyna and Talyn after the death of Tristan. And then a little interesting scene between Talyn and Tarkos. And then in chapter 29, we get Kuan back in Mithranar doing his Shadowhawk thing, but also some interesting interactions with his family. So there's a few things I wanted to talk about in these chapters. So let's start with chapter 28. Now, there's a pretty momentous decision made here, even though it's a fairly quiet chapter without too much happening, and that is Alyna's decision to go back to court. This has implications, quite strong ones for Talyn, which neither Alyna quite realizes at this point, though she does soon. And Talyn certainly doesn't realize until it's pointed out to her early on in A King of Masks and Magic. But by Alyna choosing to go back and join Arthane's court and take up her position as a Dumnorix, that has implications for Talyn, her heir. Until now, Alyna had given up those responsibilities, was not part of court, had no influence and no power, and that's about to change, and that means it's about to change for Talyn as well, which as she gets to this decision point that she's going to need to kind of grapple with in The King of Masks and Magic and A Duet and Sword of Song, and is where for Talyn her home is, given until her travel to Mithranar that had always been without consideration or without thought. The Twin Thrones, the crown, helping her country as a Caledon. Sari's death changed that. Going to Mithranar changed that even further because it made Talyn feel at home in a place that was not the Twin Thrones and not the Dumnorix court or her Dumnorix family. So yes, this is that kind of first little stone to fall in the avalanche of what the decision that Talyn is heading for. The scene with Tarkos, yuck, he's gross, disgusting. Again, I've talked about how I just don't like writing the Tarkos character, and I particularly don't like writing the scenes between him and Talyn. But what was one little glow of satisfaction in this scene, knowing that he's behind her father's death, he's behind these attempts to get her back to the Twin Thrones, to get her back to be part of the court, which is exactly what Alyna's about to do, so that she has the Dumnorix standing, influence and position at court, so that then when they marry, he can use that power to assert his place as High King of Firthland with a Dumnorix bride, etc., etc. Only she tells him here that she has absolutely no intention of staying in the Twin Thrones and she's going back to Mithranar. He tries quite forcefully but gently to change her mind on that, but her mind is not changing, and he's an awful person, and like I said, I don't like writing these scenes, but there's a nice little spark of satisfaction there that despite all the efforts he has gone to, Talyn is still not going to do what he actually wants her to do, which is fantastic. Then we jump into chapter 29. We get the first official mention of Amrun Wingsong, as I spoke about in a previous chapter author commentary. He is, spoiler alert, drop out here if you don't want this, but Kuan's father, he's been brought in. It's confirmed now that he's been brought in to hunt the Shadowhawk, and we get a little bit more of his backstory. He's been out at the Skyreach, charged with command of the northern border and keeping that safe. We get a few more little hints about who he is here, just very subtle ones. Kuan references the fact he's not Mithranar man, which is why he isn't part of the court, why he's not around the Citadel, and why he's not a senior officer in the inner circle at the Citadel. And that he's also a highly competent officer, and that's part of the reason potentially that Ravania has him posted in the north, because that is the potential landing point for any invasion from the west, from Montagn. And this is our first kind of serious mention of Arater and Montagn. So we know that Azralan and Mithranar's father is a Montagny noble from House Mananine, quite a powerful house in Montagn. Montagn itself is an incredibly powerful country. It's substantially larger than Mithranar. It has a substantially larger standing army, a far more competent standing army. And we also get a first indications here that the Montagny do not think particularly highly of the winged folk. Now, the Akondor court, the Queen Council, my apologies, the noble houses of Mithranar all think very highly of themselves. They're arrogant, they're indulgent, they're spoiled, but their nearest neighbour, I guess nearest neighbor, does not think the same way about them at all. There are no winged folk in Montagn. They're all human. There is no obvious magic, although the Montagn do have some magic that revolves a little similarly to the Dunorics. It revolves around the house that they belong to, particularly the noble houses and the land that those houses are tied to. There's very much kind of a magic, a belonging, a bonding magic in there, which is really only very briefly touched on in this A Tale of Stars and Shadows series, but is delved into a lot deeper in Book of the Doom Shroud, particularly in Call of the Shadow Rift, the first book, which, as I record this, that first book is out in 6 days' time on the 19th of June. I'm recording this a little early. That magic is kind of elucidated a little bit more, and we get to understand it, being that our protagonist of that book is Kyrie Venedor. So, yeah, we get a little bit more hints into Montagn here. The fact that Azralan makes this annual trip to Montagn to visit his house Mananine family, to maintain ties with the Ahara, who's currently from the Venedor house, from House Venedor, Kyrie's house. And that Kieran hates these trips because when he's gone in the past, Azralan pops off to hang out with his family members with House Mananine, gamble. Montagn love gambling, as does Azralan, Prince of Games. While kind of Kieran's left to go to all the kind of various official court functions and be looked down on and looked at with contempt by everyone around him, which are understandably not particularly enjoyable. So just a little bit more kind of colour there in terms of the wider world around Mithranar, which is going to start getting wider and wider as this series progresses. Another key part, as has been raised about Montagn before, is that they operate a system of slavery. That is part of the reason they are such a powerful country. A lot of their military industry, their economy runs on slave labour, which is why the Twin Thrones has absolutely nothing to do with them. The Dunorics absolutely abhor the very concept of slavery. They simply won't trade with or treat with or maintain anything more than barely civil relations with Montagn. Mithranar doesn't give a hoot. They're far too inward-looking and too interested in themselves to worry about what Montagn is doing. And Firthland is again quite much more removed from Mithranar, and also it has more, I guess, focus on its own concerns, which is the fact it hates the fact that it's a vassal state to the Twin Thrones. And the Firthland of kind of very honourable kind of persona also has no time for the business of slavery, but a little bit less so than the Twin Thrones, given, like I said, they're a little bit more focused on their own grievances, a little bit more inward looking. We also get in this chapter, Kieran makes a decision, or he figures out, he's at the back of his mind constantly his worry about Talyn. He understands with his song magic the depth of her grief over Sari. He can only imagine how awful she must be feeling that her father has died, or he assumes has probably died, if not is gravely ill. And he's trying to think of ways to help her, and does so by sacrificing himself again, going to Azralan and offering to do whatever is needed and to not sulk and to be positive and happy about the fact he's going to Arater and to take on all the royal duties so that Azralan can do whatever he likes in return for Tierslin coming back to the wing, because Kieran understands again with the depth of his song management how much that will mean not only to the wolves but to Talyn on her return, particularly if she's having a really hard time. Good deeds are not gone unrewarded. When Kieran comes back to his room that night after his meeting with Narvis, he kind of drops on the bed absolutely exhausted, as he always is, feeling very alone. But this night, Jasper's kind of slowly warming to him over time, and as Kieran kind of falls asleep, Jasper jumps up onto the bed and curls up across his legs, and Kieran suddenly feels very, very not as alone as he once did. Which is why I love Jasper so much. He's such a great little animal character. So yes, that's chapters 28 and 29. Some really meaty stuff in there, even though not necessarily is going on too much on the surface, particularly with chapter 28, but some fun stuff in there. I like the introduction of Montagn. Again, going back and reading the introduction of Montagn and Arater, and knowing Kyrie will be coming into it soon is particularly fun, given I'm in the midst of a brand new series writing about Kyrie. So yes, any questions or comments or anything on these two chapters, please drop them in the comments below. I'd love to chat about it as always. Otherwise, I can't wait to see you for chapter 30, and I hope you have a fantastic day.